I mostly focus on international transportation issues, freight distribution, logistics, supply chains, as it relates to the globalization process. It started when I was doing a PhD, mostly about transportation issue and about China. And back then, China was becoming a major global exporter. And all the American and global companies were starting to relocate in China. And I was working on this, and I saw this taking shape. And I said, wow, it's a very dynamic topic. So I decided to focus on freight transportation and ports and containers, maritime shipping, and everything that makes the global economy works. That is, make the good flows, the shelves being full of stuff. And the fun part is nobody notices it, unless there's something goes wrong. But otherwise, it runs smoothly, and you go to your store, and all the stuff is there because there's a lot of action in the background taking care of it. The fact that we have a lot of goods available on our shelves, or let's say parts for companies who manufacture other things, is linked with the advance in transportation technology. That's for sure. One key issue is what we call the container, that little box which can be filled with pretty much anything you want. I've seen so many interesting things, ranging from, of course, the regular fruits and vegetables in refrigerated containers to toys, televisions, coffee, grain, lumber, whatever. Whatever can be moved, can be traded, will be put into a container. I must say the security issue has been a very much exaggerated topic. You always hear a concern about, maybe it's going to be weapons of mass destruction. Of course, it's always a possibility. But the business itself is fairly secure because you have to think about it. You are dealing with major multinational corporations, big companies who are well-known household names, and they take care of their own security. And we are dealing with the carriers are also major multinational corporations. So we're not dealing with unknown entities trading, let's say, with the United States. With most of the cargo involves large purchasers, large buyers of goods, large transporters, and large manufacturers. So overall, the security issue is, of course, always there, but we have not found any much use of containerization or the container itself as a weapon of, let's say, for terrorism. More for of course, illicit trade. Trades of, let's say, drugs, trades of illegal goods. For instance, if you go to Manhattan, on the street corner, you're going to find all sorts of illegal handbags and shoes and stuff like that. That's most of the concern. It's not a security, it's mostly, I would say, been used for illegal purposes, which are themselves not that harmful. Of course, if we talk about drugs, that's another story. But overall, safety, security is not too much of a concern. Could be, but has not been, even with all the concern and fear after, of course, September 11. Of course, the expansion of the Panama Canal is a popular topic these days. People are paying a lot of attention because they're wondering to what extent it's going to have an impact on American trade and American businesses in terms of it's going to make, let's say, American products more competitive or other countries more competitive. So there's a lot of questioning about what's going to be the outcome of this expansion. And a few years ago, I wrote a little bit of research about this, or I wrote a report for a think tank. I was commissioned to write a report. And as a surprise, when we published it, we made it available online, it was picked up, and my name became to circulate as somebody who was familiar with the topic. And every now I get a lot of queries about, okay, what could be the outcome of this on this type of business. I even get queries about exporting coal from the United States to China, or liquid natural gas. All the commodities, everything that moved, is people are questioning what could be the consequences of this expansion. I think we have reached some kind of a limit. That is, we got improvement in speed not because, let's say, the planes, the ships, or the cars, or the trains are going faster. It was because we were able to move things in between modes more efficiently. That is, a ship arrives at a port, and it takes less time because of containers to move the cargo from the ship to the train or to the truck. So and because the ships were getting bigger and much bigger, the cost of transportation went down quite substantially. So because of all of that, it became easier to trade, and people got an impression that the world was getting smaller, which it was in many ways. But now, the rising cost of energy, for instance, in many developing economies, you have problems with congestion. We're living in an era where the impact of transportation in terms of speed might not be as well as it was in the past. I first arrived at Hofstra in 1999, which was starting to be about 15 years ago now. Back then I came as part of the Department of Economics and Geography. Geography was essentially some kind of a service department. We were offering that back then called core courses, which later on came to be known as distribution courses. And eventually we realized that there was some kind of an opportunity, and Dean Firestone was also very helpful to say, hey, we have an opportunity here to, let's say, move geography a step further, and because of this global studies which seems to be catching up. So we, in 2008, we took this opportunity and founded our little department, Global Studies and Geography. We were only 4 professors back then. And it grew pretty quickly because it's an interesting topic. Students relate quite a lot to it. It has a lot of dimensions, cultural, and very pragmatic and commercially oriented, but our colleagues who are dealing with culture, politics, and of course, economics, and it became, let's say, a fairly solid and substantial program. I teach mostly courses related to, of course, transportation, logistics. We have a course called iGlobalization, which is an interesting topic, which, again, where I talk about all these issues about how the stuff moves around the world. I teach also geographic information system, which is how to use a computer to make maps, which is also a very type of skill, a type of skill which is very much in demand on the market. I teach also economic geography, resources, energy. I thought about population geography, geography of East and Southeast Asia, a whole range of courses. And what is fun in class is, let's say, you talk about a topic that you care a lot about and you try to convey some form of passion. Because I care about the cargo, I care about the containers, I care a lot about globalization because I think it's a very, very relevant topic. And I try to convey that passion to the students. Hopefully successfully or more or less successfully depending on the semester or the cases. But that's pretty much what I like. And also what I like very much is, since I have a very practical field, is I can talk about to students about what's happening in the real world as it goes on, because I go to conferences and say, oh, I just came back from a conference and we discussed this issue. This is what seems to be a contention or a concern these days, or this is what these companies are doing right now as we speak. So I have an opportunity to get the pulse of the market almost in real time and try to report this to the students.